Hey everyone, I'm Paul with MadCap Software, and we're on video 10 of our series on styles in MadCap Flare. This one is about media queries. In the last video, it talked about mediums, and this is similar. You're going to see they're related, but these are different. Media queries are different. So what they allow you to do, like media queries, they allow you to control how your output is going to look depending on circumstances. Now with mediums, it was all about the target. All right. So you have these mediums and you say, well, this target, you use this medium, this target, you use that medium, and you'll all use the default medium unless there are conflicts in there. But media queries are really about the device or the size of the screen. So you can control a different look and feel, even different content for the output, depending on whether someone is looking at it on a big screen, on a big monitor, or maybe they've got an iPad, or maybe they've got an Android phone. And so things are just sized differently, or different devices. So that's what media queries are all about. And what we're going to be talking about in this video, for the most part, we're really talking about HTML5 output, the online output, which is what most people are using. So that's where we're going with that. Now, media queries are really cool because they allow you to control what I'm talking about in the content, not just the skins, because Flare is already set up. When you create an HTML5 target and you're using one of the skins that goes with it, it's already set up to do this. So the navigation, the skin that goes around the content, it already adjusts depending on the size of the screen, whether it's a tablet or a mobile or whether it's a big screen. But media queries in your style sheet let you go further than that. It's going to allow you to do the same kind of thing with your actual content. And that is really cool, really useful. So you might have a situation where you've got content, for example, at a certain font size, and it looks good on a big screen, but then people are looking at it on a phone and you're thinking, I gotta make the font smaller so that it just fits better on the screen. So it could be things like that. It could be font size. It could be a structure of things. It could even be different words. For example, on a big screen, it might make sense to tell people to click something, but on a small screen, it might make sense to tell them to tap something. And so you can use media queries for all of this. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about how the media queries work. We're going to look at the media queries that are just kind of provided out of the box, and then creating your own custom media queries. And we'll get into the style sheet editor and see where the media queries are and what how you can modify them or modify what goes with them. And we'll also talk a little bit about media queries and precedence. We talked about precedence earlier in this video series when it comes to style sheets, and you got kind of the same thing going on in a way with media queries in a style sheet. And there are some special features in Flare that work with media queries. So there's a lot to talk about, and we're just going to jump right in and get started with it. So first of all, we need to talk about how do these media queries work, because they don't work exactly like the mediums do. So let's go into Flare and talk this through. All right, I have a little project open in here. Now, the mediums, if you recall from the last video, if you watched that, we had mediums and we could create those for any of our targets. And we could go into the advanced tab and we say, use that medium. In this case, it's just using the default, but I could say, use print or use a custom medium that I create. And so it's going to use the default stuff, but then it will also use that specific medium if in case there are things that you want to override. So that's how mediums work. Well, media queries, you don't do that. You don't come in here into the target and say, use this media query. What's happening is it kicks in automatically in the output, depending on what's happening. Is the person looking at this on an iPad? All right, then certain settings will kick in. Or if they're looking at it on a browser, on a big screen on a monitor, and they just happen to reduce the size of the window down so it's narrower, the same thing could happen. The different styles kick in. Now, with Flare, it already has this built in for your skin, as I mentioned before. And so in your target, and you go into the skin tab and you come down, you can see you got these breakpoints. And so these are the default settings, and you can change these if you want, but they're pretty good. They're pretty accurate for what is considered a tablet or mobile, at least the landscape mobile width. And so 1279 pixels for tablet, 767 for mobile. And so this is going to control the skin, right? And anything above 1279 is just going to be the default. So I already built some output here from this. And let's open this up. And you can see this, I'm looking at this on a big screen. And so I see the navigation and I see everything. Now, if I reduce the size, now it's smaller width. Now the tablet kicks in. So I don't get the navigation on the side, and it comes in this flyout right here. So this is how the skin is automatically reacting. And if I come down to the mobile, it's really the same thing. You can't tell a big difference, but there are different style settings kicking in once I get down to the mobile size. All right, you can make further changes where you can actually see what's going on with these different outputs. So in the skin, actually, you open up, and this one is a side navigation skin, and it's going to open up in the editor. And across the top, you see web medium, tablet medium, mobile medium, right? And so by default, it's going to be on web medium, and you select your styles and you go in and you control the look. But then if you want something slightly different, maybe a smaller image or something different, you select tablet, and it's going to have different things in here too, because you've got your flyout. You've got your flyout stuff, your slide out, it calls it a slide out here. And so you've got different things, and then you can go down to the medium and you can select it there. So you can already see these are media queries happening in your skin. And again, this is just built in. You really don't have to do anything, but you can come into the skin and manipulate it. Now, what we are going to be talking about is taking this into your style sheet. So you'll also have, think of the web medium as your default medium, right? So the default medium, we looked at it in the last video, and that is a medium, but it's also being used kind of in this purpose. It's just your main styles. But then once you get down to a certain size, you want to override certain things when it gets to the tablet width or when it gets the mobile width. All right, so that's how it happens. And then you can create custom media queries that could be different widths, right? And so you don't do anything in your target. You go into your style sheet and you are just applying these styles or setting the properties in certain mediums, in certain media queries, sorry. And you do it in your tablet one and you do it in your mobile one. And then when the output is viewed, it just happens magically. It just automatically. So that is how media queries work. Now we are going to next look at the default media queries that you just get out of the box. And then we'll look at creating custom media queries. Just like our mediums were provided, a couple of default ones in Flare, there are a couple of media queries that are provided also. And so let's go into Flare and check those out. Okay, I'm just going to close these things, and I want to go open up my style sheet in this little project here. And you already saw that these media queries, you got a quick glimpse of them in the last video that we did. So in here, I'm currently on my default medium. And if I select this, you can see, all right, there's mobile, there's tablet. Okay, so I could switch, I could open one or both of these up in here. And those are just provided right out of the gate. And it's really nice because these tie in automatically to those breakpoints that we saw in the target. And actually, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a target that is being used for side navigation. So we've got these in here. But if you happen to be doing a tri-pane output, you can set the breakpoints in the skin there instead of that instead of the target. All right, but because those media queries are named tablet and mobile, they're going to just use the same breakpoints because they're not specified anywhere else. It's just there. And if I open up this style sheet in my text editor, and we move all the way down here to where the media queries start, you can see it's called @media tablet. Just by virtue of the fact that it's called that, it associates with that breakpoint that we had. And you can change the breakpoint. And if you change the breakpoint, this will act accordingly. And the same thing down here, you got @media mobile, right? Now, we are in the next section going to talk about creating custom media queries, and they're not going to be named like this. So they're just kind of different. But these are provided right out of the box. And similar to the mediums, you may not need to do and create anything else. You might just be able to get by just fine with these. So they're already there set up for you. You just have to go in and tell them what you want, what styles you want to be different for those. All right, next, let's get into talking about creating custom media queries. All right, do you need extra media queries besides those that are provided? I don't know, you might just discover that over time. If we go back into Flare, let's look at the breakpoints and talk about this. So in Flare, I can open up again that target, and you can see, all right, so the tablet, I'm getting different stuff at 1279 pixels wide, and a mobile at 767. Maybe you have some content. We're going to talk about responsive layouts in a little while in this video, because those let you control structure of content, and they work with media queries. And so maybe you have certain structures like that where something is in, they're side by side, but then they stack on top of each other when you get down to a certain size, just to make it easier to see. And maybe you have a need to create a media query that's between these breakpoints, between the size of tablet and mobile. Or maybe you need a couple that are lower in the size than the mobile. So you just kind of figure that out as time goes by, what your needs are, all right? So let's say that you want to have 2 extra custom media queries, and both of them smaller than the mobile breakpoint. All right, so we'll go into the style sheet editor here, and we've got these already set up. You can see them, and just like you create a medium, you go in here and select add medium. Although, yeah, it's actually a media query, and you select media query now. So this is different than providing a simple name. You're not going to provide a simple name. Instead, you're going to use these fields, unless you happen to know exactly how to write the thing. You can do that, but most people don't. But you can select certain things in here, like screen, and that then will, allow you to select something in there. And then you got all these things in here. So there are all kinds of possibilities. And I'm obviously not going to go into all these. These things are standard, CSS things. And if you really want to know about all these options in here, go look at the w3.org website. Go look at other websites where they discuss all of these things. Now, most people are going to want to be setting this according to something like a max width. So that's what I'm going to do in here. Let's go and select max width. And then I can put in a value in here. And remember, the mobile was at 767. Let's say that I want something at 600 pixels. And I click OK. And the style sheet editor will adjust. If I had just one thing open in here, just one medium or media query, the other one would go away, and then it would just show this one. But because I had multiple ones open, it's just adding this over here on the right. Okay. And you can see what its name is. These are nicely named tablet and mobile. This one is named parentheses max width : 600 pixels in parentheses. So it's, not the most spiffy name, but it's what it does. Now let's add another media query in here. Same kind of thing. Go in and we'll do the max width once more. And let's just set this one to 500 pixels. All right. And it's going to add another one. Now you get enough things in here, and it might be a little too cumbersome to work, but I just wanted to show you about creating these things. All right. So they're created. Now you can do whatever you want with them in the same way that you work with the tablet and the mobile media queries in your other mediums. So what we're going to do next in the next section is we'll talk about working in here with the media queries. Okay, we got our custom media queries. In addition to everything else, let's go back into Flare and see about working in the Stylesheet editor. So as I mentioned, if you're working in the advanced view, you can see how this can get cluttered pretty quickly if you're trying to deal with a lot of these at once. And you can, move things around to try to get more space. You could pin your Content Explorer and your project organizer over on the left side. And to get more space, you can do all those kinds of things. But you might just find that, man, I just want to deal with like my two custom ones, and I don't want to see the tablet and the mobile. That's fine. You can close those out. When you expand this, as we saw in the previous video, you're going to see these things are just inheriting from the default medium, unless you tell it otherwise. So I'm going to close the tablet. I'll close the medium, and then we get a little bit more space in here. All right. So let's make a couple of changes so that we can see this in action. And once again, we're going to stick with doing things in color because it's just easy. But in the real world, I think what happens is you do things like font size, you just make sometimes very small adjustments, but they do make an impact. But for our purposes, we're just going to change the color because you see it immediately. All right. So our color in the default medium is this variable. It's a kind of that dark gray. And let's say that first of all, we need to go and select what we want. Let's do it on the paragraph style. All right. There we go. Okay. So the color is actually not set here in the default medium. It is inheriting it from the body. So, but it is using that dark gray, right? Let's say that once the screen gets down to 600 pixels, we want the paragraphs to be red. All right. That'd be very, very odd, but serves our purposes. And now you're going down smaller and it gets to 500 pixels width. And let's do the opposite. Let's do a blue in here. Make it easy to see these things. All right. So we did it. And that's really all we need to do. Now we can just generate this output and view it again, or view it and see what happens. All right, so the output opens. Hopefully this works. I actually recorded this before, and it wasn't getting me resizing the screen. And so I might have to try something different here to get it to work. But you can see I've got the width is pretty wide. And if I come in and select one of the interior topics, you can see, all right, the text is just that default look. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to scroll down and get to here. Hopefully that scroll worked in the when I was clicking and dragging it, but it's changed at 600 pixels to red. And if I click and move it smaller, I'm going to let go. That's where it changed to blue, right? So it's just that simple. All right. Now, that is easy, but there is something that you do kind of need to watch, because precedence comes into play with this output. And you could find yourself expecting something to look a certain way at a certain width on a certain screen, and it's not looking that way. And it could have to do with precedence, with things not being in the right order in your style sheet. So we're going to look at that next. Okay, earlier in this series, we had a video on style sheets and precedence, and we're right back there again with precedence, because your style sheet, as I have shown you in previous videos, that when you add a new selector, a new something in your style sheet, it adds it to the bottom of the style sheet when you look at it in the text editor. If you're just in the style sheet editor, you won't notice this at all. But you open it up in the text editor, there it is at the very bottom. And the general rule here is things that are at the bottom, so those are more recent, and those have precedence over the things above it. And so let's see how this can affect your media queries and actually other styles in your style sheet. Now, in the style sheet, let's go look at the H1 just before we get into the media queries. And you're going to see that the color here for the H1 is that style variable. It's that blue that we see in the preview here. All right, cool. But let's go into the text editor, and that H1, easy way to find things in here. If you're in a document like this, there's this button right here, the quick find. Or if you're in a topic and you just want to search in that topic. So I know that this is H1, and it's going to find a few instances of it, but this is the one I know that I want. It's at the far left. It's not indented. It's not in one of the mediums. This is what I'm interested in. There's that color, H1 color. Now, let's say that I forget that I had set that, and it's way up here. You can see by the scroll bar, it's way up there. I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to paste this thing in here, and I am going to, let's just get rid of those two. And then for the color, for some colors, primary colors, you can just type the name in there. There's different ways to, enter what the color is. So I've got conflicting information here up above. I said, hey, I want that kind of that brand color, that blue. But down here, I said green. Well, let's go in and look at a topic where we've got the H1, and it's green. And it's green because it's lower in the style sheet. It's at the bottom. And I could go back and find this one, and I could cut it and come back down and paste it below this one. So I've got two of these H1s in here right next to each other, but now this one is on the bottom. And so that one wins. And this is important for your style sheet or your media queries, because notice that I created these in order. I did the larger one first. There it is, media max width 600 pixels. And this one is media max width 500 pixels. Well, if this one happened to come before it, I'm just going to cut and paste it right in there. And then we rebuild our output, and look at it, initially it might look okay, but you're going to see that things are not all right. Yeah, of course, I had to reshoot this one also. It doesn't like clicking and dragging. But we'll go ahead, open up the same topic. And now I'm going to click and drag, and you'll just kind of have to trust me on this. I'll get down here. So this is where right here, around here is where the red kicks in, and keep dragging. And the blue, I released again. And if this had been done right, you would be seeing blue, but you're not seeing it. It stays red. And that's because the order is different. It got down here to the 600 pixels. This one wins. And so it kept that color, and it never even got to the 500 pixels. So that's just a word of caution for you for the precedence. So if you are generating this and you're testing and you're like, man, it's not changing the way I thought, take a look at this and take a look and see if you've got things in the right order to make them work. You typically want the lower number down at the bottom. Okay, now we're going to turn our attention to, in the next section, on some special features in Flare that make use of media queries. Now, in Flare, it's not just your style sheets where you're going to be interacting with media queries, or that's the only place where you can. There are some cool features in Flare where you're actually going to be able to use these. So let's go into Flare and look through a few of these really neat things. Now, first of all, I showed you when you created the custom media queries to select this and click Add Medium, and then you filled out that stuff. Well, you do have another option. And if you open up a topic, a content file, there is this little button down here called Layout Resizer. Toggle the Layout Resizer. And you can see across the top, you got this bar in here. And it's got these little things in here that are called thumbs. And if you hover over one, you see 767 pixels. Well, that sounds familiar. Yeah, that's the breakpoint for your tablet or for your mobile. And come over here. That's the breakpoint for the new custom media query we created. This is the breakpoint right there for the other one, the other custom media query. And because of the resolution that I'm shooting at, the width of the screen, we're only seeing these. But you can use this to check out how things look according to certain breakpoints in the editor. And you can also create brand new breakpoints. Now, I'm not going to go into more detail than that, because I actually have another video called Layout Resizer. And so if you're interested, I would recommend that you go ahead and take a look at that and see all the things about the Layout Resizer. But that is a neat feature that does work with media queries that you create. Now, another neat feature, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. No point in having it on, well, if I'm not going to be using it. And another cool feature is is responsive layouts. And so this I kind of mentioned before. You can open up on the home ribbon the responsive layout window pane, and it opens over there, and you can create sort of these tiles, these cells, in order to put content in them. Press enter, and you can create them. You can, and I'm on you can see web, tablet, mobile. I happen to, it started out here on the mobile because I was on that previously, another thing. And so I'm going to start out here on the web. I always start with the web, design with the web first, and then I will go down and go to mobile, but maybe you like better starting with mobile and working your way up that way. So I can create a style in here, and I'm not going to go through all of the ins and outs of the responsive layout, but you can see that you can create these different configurations And the little previews on the right give you an idea of what's happening. Okay, there's 3 cells next to each other. And then when you flip it and you go to mobile, they're going to stack. That's how that's designed. And that's how that's designed. So you can create new configurations based on existing ones, and you can, add cells, delete cells, and so forth. And so you would just add it. If I wanted to select one of these that I already have in here, and I could insert a row, and you can get cell 1, cell 2, and these are already designed to look a certain way, and I could use that to put content in. Now, so you would click in here and you would specify, all right, how do I want the configuration to be for web? And then you would go tablet. Do I also want it to be, this width? It all works on the basis of the number 12. So you want your row to add up to 12. So this cell has a width of 6. And if I click in that cell, it has a width of 6. But if I go down to mobile and I click in them, see they're stacked. It's a width of 12. It's using up all the space in 12. All right. So yeah, I don't want to go further into that. You can read all about it in the online help. But yeah, that is one other cool way that you can use media queries right in Flare. Now, another way that you can use them has to do with conditions. So you can actually apply conditions to content in such a way that they kick in based on the media query, right? So most people are used to applying media are used to applying conditions to content. And then they, in the target, they go include this, exclude this. But you could go and do something that's a bit different and say, yeah, it's going to be included, but only included if it's used in this media query, if it's at this width. So I could do something in here like click the button. And then I could do another one that says click, tap the button. I'm just making things up here, thinking that, all right, this text is more appropriate. Click the button on a big screen, and this one might be for the mobile and tablet. And so go in here to my conditions. I'm going to open this up, and this one, the project templates already come set up with these, and you don't have to use them. They're just, this one's named mobile, this one's named tablet, this one's named web. You can name them whatever, and it doesn't mean anything unless you apply meaning to it later in the target. But let's say that we want to use this. We want, all right, if it's at the widest, we want it to use the web condition. If it's narrower, all right, so that's going to use our tablet. This is going to use mobile. All right, so you can set them there, those 3. So I can come in here and I can say, click the button. Well, that makes sense if it's the web. And this other one, the word tap, that makes sense if it is mobile or tablet, right? And then you go into your target where you set your conditions. I'm going to close the responsive layout thing in here, and you tell it what you want it to do with all your targets, right? And it's already set up so that screen only. The idea here is, okay, this is online output and the print is for PDF output only. But now I can come in here and I go, all right, mobile, what do I want to happen? Well, I'm not going to do a simple include exclude. I'm going to come down here to display by media query, and I'm going to say, I want that to be displayed, stuff that has that condition, if it's using the mobile media query. This one, same thing, but for tablets. This one, same thing, but for web. Set that up, and then we can build our output once again and check it out. So we should see at the widest point, yeah, I did it right here. Click the button. So we're at the widest, and then we got in. You can tell that you get into the tablet once this thing changes to this deal up here. I am shooting at a low resolution, so I can't get it out wide enough to show you the transition, but it's at the tablet. And so this changed. It's not click, it's tap now. And go in further, and now you see the color changes because of the other media queries, but the word tap is still there. All right, so that is responsive conditions. Now, just real quickly, I'll show you what I do, because I think it is useful to see how other people are using media queries. So if I were to go into my project in here, and let me just show you, actually, I should have just kept that open. Resources, let's open up the style sheet. And I'm going to show you that I use, of course, the tablet and the mobile. And I showed you this before in another one where I have all these mediums in here. But I do have a couple of custom media queries. One's at 460, one's at 350. Well, why? Well, a lot of this happened because I just didn't think, oh, I'd like to create some media queries. What happened is with the dynamic help that you see when you first open up Flare. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking through here. Oh, there it is, of course, in the help, the dynamic help. I never have it open, so I don't know. And if you, by the way, if you get, all kinds of things opened in here, a quick tip, and you go, I just want to go back to the very beginning, and the very beginning has the dynamic help over on the side. You can just select reset layout. So if you get into a weird situation with all kinds of things, it's just going to go back here. And so this dynamic help opens up at a certain width. You can see it's kind of small. You can see the size of the text and everything. Well, if I made that wider, you can see the text gets larger. And so because tablet really it's 767, and you're thinking about a cell phone that's flipped, so it's landscape. But once you get in much narrower like this, well, I needed the font to be smaller. I needed certain things to look and fit in better. And so I had to create actually a couple of different ones. And they also had to do with the fact that when certain structures, those responsive layouts are shown, I needed those two extra custom ones. So I do that. Also, let's see, let's go into, this is actually the online help. And if you were to search for something, I mentioned the responsive layouts earlier. So if you were to search for something like, change logo, right? You're going to see I've got a responsive layout here. A lot of times I can have a set of steps or just paragraph it, or I could have a animated GIF over on the right, whatever. But you can see this is using 3 cells in here. That was responsive layout. And if I just go smaller and smaller at the mobile breakpoint, it kicks in and these stack on top of each other. Makes them easier to read. I also do use the responsive conditions. I don't use it to change the terms click and tap, because Flare is a desktop tool, so you're always clicking. So when I'm describing that, but something like, let's see. All right, let's do something like skins. Oops. You do this and you see I've got these tables. This is a responsive layout where this part right here is a cell and this part showing the images is a cell, but this is a table inside. And that's fine and everything except the table. Once you get this narrow, it gets, things get squeezed. And so at a certain point, it flips. And so this table actually is 1 column instead of 3 columns. And the way that I did that was I actually created 2 tables, and the contents are in snippets. So I'm not, redoing work. And so I insert the snippets into those 2 tables, and I put responsive conditions on the 2 tables. One's going to show for the wider screen, and the other's going to show for mobile. So those are just a few examples of what I do. Okay, so those are media queries. Now, what I would just urge you to do is try to keep things as simple as possible. Don't just create media queries just to create media queries. Create them with a purpose. If you need extra ones, great. If you don't have to do them, it's best not to create them. And edit the tablet and the mobile media queries as you need. Use the responsive layouts and the responsive conditions if you need them. They are there for that purpose. Everything that I've done in my output has been because I just came across these things these reasons why I needed to use them, or I thought things would be better presenting information in a certain way. So yeah, they're really, really great. Media queries are. So use them wisely. Improve your documentation, but don't go get all crazy and add stuff just to add stuff. That's it for this video. We are down to one more in our styles series, this video, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to close it out with the next video.